You ever hear a kid call 911 and say, "My daddy locked me in the basement"? Yeah, that happened, and what they found changed everything. Before I dive in, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Let's get into this. On a scorching Tuesday afternoon in Lansing, Michigan, the police dispatch center was its usual noisy self. Phones ringing. Coffee half drunk. Officers juggling emergencies. But at 3:47 p.m., something cut through the noise. Officer Daniel Hayes, a 37-year-old cop with 12 years on the force, was wrapping up paperwork when dispatcher Sarah flagged him. "Daniel, get to Maple Street. We've got a strange one." Then came the voice on the line, quiet, trembling. "Hello? Is someone there? My daddy locked me in the basement again. Please don't tell him I called. I found this old phone down here." Daniel's heart tightened. He'd heard desperate calls, but this one hit different, small, fragile, scared. "What's the address?" he asked, already grabbing his keys. 20 minutes later, Daniel stood before a worn-down blue house, peeling paint, weeds choking the yard. The mailbox read McKinley in faded letters. No answer at the door, so he circled to the back, spotting a basement window behind tall weeds. That voice came again, soft, scared. "Hello? Are you the policeman?" Daniel knelt. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm Officer Daniel. What's your name?" "Kelly. I'm 7. Through grimy glass, Daniel saw a tiny figure sitting on a metal bed, clutching a worn rabbit. The basement was damp, dark, cluttered. "Are you hurt, Kelly?" "No, sir. Just waiting for Daddy to say I can come up. But it's been a long time, and I'm scared." "Since when?" "Since this morning, maybe breakfast. I spilled my orange juice, and Daddy said I had to think about being more careful." Daniel swallowed hard. She whispered, "I wasn't supposed to call, but I remembered school said to call 911 if scared. I found this phone behind boxes." That tiny bravery. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about his own daughter, Emma, 3 states away. When backup arrived, they entered through an unlocked back door. The house was tidy but cold, no signs of childhood mess or joy. Photos showed Kelly with a tired man with kind eyes, her dad, Thomas McKinley. They found the basement door locked. As it opened, Kelly looked up quietly. "Hi," she said, clutching her rabbit. Then she said something that stayed with Daniel forever. "He locks me down here because that's how you teach love." That phrase, "how you teach love," shook him. 12 years on the force, and no child had ever put it that way. Kelly was smaller than expected, in a faded purple dress. Tangled hair, but her eyes were sharp. When asked if she was hungry, she said, "I'm not supposed to eat until Daddy says." Daniel and his partner exchanged worried looks. Kelly said her dad worked hard at the factory because it was just the two of them now. Kelly rarely went to school, was quiet, and seemed resigned, almost like she'd given up hope for a normal childhood. When Thomas came home, he looked tired but not angry. He explained, "She had to think about what she did wrong. It's how my father disciplined me." Kelly whispered, "Daddy, I got scared. It was dark, so long, and I heard noises." Thomas seemed genuinely distressed. He was a single dad trying to do his best after losing his wife 2 years ago. Neighbors told a different story. No outdoor play, crying heard sometimes. But Thomas always had an excuse. Social services had investigated before, but no evidence was found. Daniel said gently, "Mr. McKinley, we need child protective services involved. When a child calls 911 for help, it's serious." Thomas broke down. "I don't want to hurt her. I just don't know how to do this alone. My father was strict, but I turned out fine." Kelly, listening quietly, tugged Daniel's sleeve and whispered a secret. "Sometimes, when I'm locked downstairs, I pretend I'm a princess in a tower, waiting for someone to remember me." That innocence, it was heartbreaking. The next day, Margaret Lynn arrived, a child welfare worker with a knack for connecting to scared kids. She brought art supplies, picture books, and cookies, knowing sometimes kids open up through crayons. Kelly was wary, sitting in a corner, eyes always on the door. But when Margaret asked to draw, Kelly's face lit up. Her pictures were haunting, always a small figure trapped in a dark box with a tiny window. "That's me in my thinking room," Kelly said flatly. "Daddy calls the basement that." Kelly said she went there often, days at a time, to think about being better. Margaret saw how Kelly spoke like an adult, too responsible for her age, missing school, withdrawn. Never played, just drew the same lonely pictures. Her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, was heartbroken. When Margaret and Daniel dug into reports, they found 2 previous investigations closed for lack of evidence. Thomas was cooperative, the house clean, Kelly not contradicting him. But the 911 call was different. Kelly reached out, asking for help. Margaret said quietly, "I think we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg." Kelly's protecting her dad and herself from a truth she's not ready to face. Days passed. Margaret brought hot chocolate, stories, slowly earning Kelly's trust. Kelly spoke of her mother, who laughed and sang, things her dad no longer did. She practiced being quiet to avoid upsetting her dad, even holding her breath to not make noise. Daniel started visiting too, bringing little gifts, becoming a friend, not just an officer. Whispering about a broken glass and the fear of making noise, because good families are quiet families, her dad said. She had to walk softly, close doors quietly, even breathe silently when Dad rested. Margaret saw Thomas's exhaustion, a man drowning in grief and trying to hold onto control. He confessed his father was strict too, teaching him children should be seen and not heard. When Kelly made noise, he believed more thinking time was needed. Kelly later revealed she was so quiet she forgot how to make sounds, scared she'd disappear. Margaret knew the situation was deeper than anyone imagined. Kelly pretended her mom visited in the basement, telling her it's okay to take up space. But Kelly felt torn. If Mom said it was okay to be loud, but Dad said no, who was right? Margaret saw a little girl caught between memory and grief, love and pain. Daniel dug into Thomas's past, finding records of a childhood with similar strictness and punishment, even time locked in the basement as a kid. Thomas had been a quiet, scared child too. Daniel and Thomas met, 2 fathers grappling with cycles of discipline and grief. Thomas insisted he was different, but finally admitted, "I didn't know how to be a father alone after Sarah died." He had made Kelly quiet because her laughter reminded him painfully of his wife. Daniel said gently, "Love shouldn't make a child disappear." Thomas asked, "Can I change? Can Kelly forgive me?" Daniel said, "She's still hoping you'll remember how to let her exist." Therapy started. Thomas learned about healthy love, letting Kelly be loud, make mistakes. Kelly began laughing again, playing with friends, learning to take up space. But during a family dinner, when Thomas said the basement would be a playroom, Kelly panicked. She couldn't go back, even if it was different. She whispered a secret, that quiet game, where she had to be so silent it was like she wasn't there at all. Thomas was shocked as Kelly described nights where he held her tightly, asking her to disappear. He realized his grief had made him ask his daughter to vanish. Kelly stood bravely and said, "Daddy, I want to be here," making noise, taking up space. Thomas, tears streaming, asked for forgiveness. Kelly said, "I forgive you, but please help me remember how to be visible again." Therapy extended. Healing was a long road. Kelly learned she was never supposed to disappear, that love isn't silence. The community rallied around Kelly, neighbors, teachers, even the pastor who once defended Thomas admitted he was wrong. Months later, Thomas laughed more, danced with Kelly, celebrated her joyful messes. The basement was transformed into a bright art studio. Kelly's room was full of light. On a sunny spring morning, Kelly shouted a joyous shout that filled the house, her laughter echoing free and full of life. She had come home, visible, audible, loved exactly as she was. So here's the thing, folks. Sometimes love gets tangled in grief and fear, and kids pay the price by disappearing in silence. But healing is possible, with patience, community, and courage. What do you think? How do we break cycles like this? Drop your thoughts below, because every child deserves to be seen and heard.